How to actually knit double knitting. Okay, when you're double knitting, you've got one strand of each color on, and what you are always doing is the main color that's facing you is the stitch that you will always knit, and the color that's on the back side, the main color, is the stitch that you will purl. So you're always knitting, purling, knitting, purling, knitting, purling, always, except for your edge stitches, and then there's some weird circumstances that can happen in between. But I'm talking your basic scarf, coaster, placemat, etc. And this is recommended for those new to double knitting. So you will always knit, purl, knit, purl, knit, purl, always. And then you flip it over and you're always knit, purling, knit, purling, knit, purling. You're knitting the main color that's there and you're purling the background color, except for the edge stitches. And those you work, there's many ways of doing it, but in this method, the edge stitches, I work the two colors together. So to work your knitting, in this case, you're going to work those two together, and I'll show you how in a minute. Then you work each stitch individually all the way to the end, and then when you reach the last two, you're going to, instead of working them separately, you're going to work them together. So I'll talk about that. The edge stitch. There are many methods depending on what you're doing, but in this case, for the first time, making your basic scarf and your basic coaster, this makes a very nice chained up edge. And how do you do it? Here's another example. Very nice chained up edge. How do you do it? It's really easy. So when you're knitting, your double knitting, you are working the stitches individually except for the first two and the last two, and all you're doing is you're slipping the first two together as if to knit, and you're purling the last two. You flip it over, you slip the first two stitches as if to knit, and then you purl the last two stitches together, and that's it. That makes a very nice chained up stitch. So I will just very quickly knit the row so you can see how it works. Slip the first two as if to knit. Now don't worry, you're going to freak out when you see me knitting these stitches, because you're going to go, how are you holding your yarn? How do you do that? I will show you that in a video coming up. So I am knitting my first stitches and purling, not my first stitches, I'm knitting the main color and I'm purling the color that's on the back side. I'm knitting the main color and I'm purling the color that's on the back side. Knitting the main color and purling the color that is on the back side. And I know that you're already noticing that, hey, some of those you're knitting through the back loop. What the heck? Don't worry about it. It's all a matter of, I'm going to do that just to freak you out. It's all in a matter of how you hold your yarn. There's many methods and you just have to get comfortable with it. So just remember, the most important thing right now is you're knitting the first stitch and then you're purling the stitch behind. You're knitting the first, not the first stitch, you're knitting the color that's in front, the front color that you're working with, and then you're purling the stitch that is behind. Knit the main color, and the color that is on the back side you're going to purl. So I'll just continue that until the end so I can show you how I end the edge stitch. Okay, now I'm coming to my last 4 stitches, so I'm going to knit the main stitch, purl the back stitch, and now there's that edge stitch with 2 left, and you purl, and that will give you the nice chained up look along your double knitting.